Coffee locking, infinite spell slots, ultimate power! Coffee locking is a pretty old strategy and build that I kinda think has been lost to time. This was really popular back in the Xanathar days. Optimization back in the day was so different from what it is now. Today we're gonna go back in the past, explain coffee locking, and then answer the old question, is it actually overpowered? Welcome to Pack Tactics. By the way, we sell mugs at the Pack Tactics store. You can drink coffee with them. Now, let's go back to the days of old, before even Xanathars was released. I wasn't around back then. I joined the scene when Xanathars came out. In 2014, I was playing Call of Cthulhu 7e. What's wrong, Gator? Ghost stories are scary. Gator, it's not gonna be that kind of story. It's gonna be about mechanics, which, fair enough, could be pretty spooky. We gotta read stuff. So, sorcerers at level 2 get their Font of Magic feature. You have 2 sorcery points, and you gain more as you reach higher levels, as shown in the sorcery points column of the sorcerer table. You can never have more sorcery points than shown on the table for your level. You regain all spent sorcery points when you finish a long rest. Flexible casting. You can use your sorcery points to gain additional spell slots, or sacrifice spell slots to gain additional sorcery points. You learn other ways to use your sorcery points as you reach higher levels. Creating spell slots. You can transform unexpended sorcery points into 1 spell slot as a bonus action on your turn. The creating spell slots table shows the cost of creating a spell slot of a given level. You can create spell slots no higher in level than 5th level. Any spell slot you create with this feature vanishes when you finish a long rest. Here's the table, and then at the bottom here it says converting a spell slot to sorcery points. As a bonus action on your turn, you can expend 1 spell slot and gain a number of sorcery points equal to the slot's level. This feature limits the number of sorcery points you have at all times, but it does not limit how many spell slots you can create. Or at least not directly. But Kobold, you can't make more spell slots than your total. That makes no sense. No, you misunderstand the feature. You aren't restoring spell slots. You are creating them. Additionally, the number of these slots that you can create is indirectly limited by making them vanish after a long rest, as well as the source of sorcery points being limited per long rest. However, these 2 limitations can both be negated. Like, they vanish after a long rest? Okay, then don't take a long rest. Your spell slots are limited per long rest? Okay, take levels in Warlock. So this is the theory behind coffee locking. Step 1. Turn Warlock spell slots, which is a valid option, into sorcery points. Step 2. Use sorcery points to create more spell slots. Step 3. Short rest to regain Warlock spell slots. And then 4. Repeat. Oh, and of course don't take any long rests. Stay up all night with coffee, hence the name. But Kobold, not long resting means you die! Well, not exactly, especially not before Xanathars, which we'll talk about soon. The player handbook mentions that a DM might call for a constitution check when trying to go without sleep. I guess that's supposed to mean a failure means you fall asleep. To fix this, you either go play something like a Warforged, or you get the Aspect of the Moon Eldritch Invocation through Pact of the Tome. Both of these options give you more time to short rest instead of sleeping. Or you do in fact sleep, but just never finish a long rest. Either way, you create more spell slots that'll never go away without being used up. In downtime, this can stack up to quite a lot. But then everything changed when Xanathars came out, the best book. Speaking of books, this video is sponsored by Monsters of Drakenheim. The Dungeon Dudes are back with Scary Eldritch Monsters. It's got over 300 pages of D&D 5e content with 150 murderous monsters. There's eldritch monstrosities, mutated beasts, and spooky undead spanning from CR 1 to 30. That's plenty of monsters for you to kill, and what's even more metal is you can slay them and harvest them and create cool equipment. What's extra cool about this is you can build entire player-driven adventures with this. It's really advanced, and combine that with the deep lore of these monsters, you've already got a campaign ready. The players are monster hunters. Woo! To add even more stuff, there's also new deadly condition mechanics to spice up combat with new debuffs and elemental conditions. Guys, there's a lot of content from these dudes. There's the Dungeons of Drakenheim, and that's on D&D Beyond. Then there's Sebastian Crow's guide being fulfilled, and now there's the monster book live on Kickstarter. I highly recommend you check it out, especially if you love eldritch monsters. The dudes and the ghosts make really good content. Anyways, back to the video. Under the sleep section, an optional rule is included named Going Without a Long Rest on page 78. Here's what it says. A long rest is never mandatory, but going without sleep does have its consequences. If you want to account for the effects of sleep deprivation on characters and creatures, use these rules. Whenever you end a 24-hour period without finishing a long rest, you must succeed on a DC 10 Constitution saving throw or suffer 1 level of exhaustion. It becomes harder to fight off exhaustion if you stay awake for multiple days. After the first 24 hours, the DC increases by 5 for each consecutive 24-hour period without a long rest. The DC resets to 10 when you finish a long rest. This optional rule is very popular, like literally everybody uses it. As for exhaustion is very bad obviously, like look at it. And with this rule, it of course forced the optimizers and power gamers at the time to improve Coffeelock. And what they came up with is, the Coca-Cola lock. Listen, I can't say its real name because I'm afraid YouTube is gonna be mad at me. I personally think the name is brilliant, and you'll understand it as soon as I explain it. Coca-Cola locks power through the exhaustion by snorting diamond dust to remove the exhaustion with greater restoration. No, I'm not joking. This is a real thing. Look at it. But Kobold, how are they getting greater restoration as a sorcerer warlock multiclass? Well, the very same book came with Divine Soul Sorcerer, and they let you pick spells from the Cleric spell list as well as the Sorcerer spell list. Very convenient, huh? Or, of course, there might be a party member that has this spell. Who knows? Now, of course, doing this can be expensive depending on the table, but I think when you're that high level and you have greater restoration, you don't really have a money problem. I've never seen that before. Even when you play in games where you spend a lot of gold on scrolls, poisons, and maybe even magic items, getting a lot of money at that high level is really easy. Maybe getting a large quantity of the components might be hard, but I don't know. I can't guess people's games, sadly. I'm spending too much time on this. Let's move on. Coffee locks and Coca-Cola locks have a very interesting conundrum. The number of sorcery points you can maintain at once is limited by your sorcerer level, which also limits the level of the spell slots you can create. To make second level spell slots, you need 3 levels in sorcerer. To make third level spell slots, you need to be 5th level. To make 4th level spells, you need to be level 6, and to create 5th level spells, you need to be level 7. It's interesting that this is in fact faster than the normal spell slot progression, but it caps out at 5th level instead of 9th level. However, the speed of creating spell slots is limited by your warlock level. A higher warlock level means higher level spell slots, which means more sorcery points per slot, as well as more spell slots, which means more sorcery points per short rest. This means that you have to weigh one against the other if you opt to go for this strategy. However, I don't think this is worth doing. I personally think both of these builds are just incredibly dumb. And even in practice, they're very dumb. This strategy falls apart when you have consecutive adventuring days. And that's very common in optimization. I've DM'd for many coffee locks before, and what I've noticed when it's actually working is a lot of them fail at taking advantage of their full power anyways. You won't believe how many times I've seen a Coffeelock cast Hex plus Eldritch Blast over and over again. They're basically treating this Coffeelock like a normal warlock. And trust me, back in the day, this was heavily encouraged. People thought back in the day that Hex plus Eldritch Blast was more powerful than Mass Shutdown. That's how crazy things were back then. Imagine thinking Hex plus Eldritch Blast is stronger than Web or Hypnotic Pattern. Are you kidding me? If you actually do this, then in my opinion, you're actually memeing the build. Especially if you actually manage to get infinite spell slots. As for those actually taking advantage of their full power, that's very good. I'm happy for you, and don't let me take away from your fun. I think the DM might actually do that, but I won't. We don't even play together. But I have to say, I don't like these builds, even when you paint it with the flavor is free brush. That's actually really rare for me to say. The reason why is because I think the mechanics are really dumb. I seriously think you're just better off spending this downtime as a wizard than a warlock. You can scribe scrolls, which means you have more resources. If you scribe a bunch of first level scrolls, then that basically means you have a bunch of first level spell slots in your pockets. And these don't go away after a long rest. You just use them whenever you want. I think this is a way better option than snorting diamond dust every night. Are you kidding me? And not only that, straight warlocks can also create scrolls. So if you're building a Coffeelock and just casting Hex, like, dude, you can just play a regular warlock and scribe Hex scrolls. That's what you do anyways as a straight warlock. You only have like 2 pack slots. If you want to know more about scribing, check out this video, by the way. Now, this video might have caught you all by surprise, but while I think it's worth explaining these builds, I don't think it's worth optimizing them. I'm not the only person who has this opinion. There's actually plenty. But their opinion and of course their experience is probably vastly different from mine. Anyways, I hope you guys learned something new today. End of video. I hope I earned your subscription and maybe your support on Patreon. If I didn't earn your subscription, then I have to optimize better. It's okay. You could do whatever you want. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Bye bye!